What if a single woman's choices could reshape the destiny of an entire people? What if the same hand that once struck fear into the hearts of believers could one day extend mercy and inspire unity? Imagine standing under the fiery Arabian sun, the air thick with dust and anticipation, as rival banners clash on the horizon. In the 7th century, amid the sand-blown lanes of Mecca and the roar of tribal conflict, there lived a woman named Hind bint Utbah, Hinda, whose life would span both sides of a great divide. Born into privilege and pride, she witnessed her family's fortunes rise and fall as Islam emerged. She would stand on the battlefield face to face with the Prophet's own kin and later stand at his side in peace. Her name still echoes through history not as a mere footnote, but as a vivid testament to vengeance, faith, and forgiveness. To uncover her story is to hold up a mirror to our own capacity for change. Hind entered the world around 560 CE in the noble clan of Banu Abd Shams, part of the Quraysh tribe that dominated Mecca's bustling caravan trade. From her earliest days, she was surrounded by the wealth and pageantry of her people. Silken tents dyed in deep indigo and crimson, her father Utbah ibn Rabi'ah's gleaming mounts returning laden with Yemeni frankincense and Syrian textiles. She learned the art of poetic oration at her mother's knee, memorizing verses that extolled tribal honor and immortalized heroic deeds. In the marketplaces, she watched merchants haggle over myrrh and gold dust. At the Kaaba, pilgrims circled pagan idols carved by artisans from the Hijaz. These polytheistic rites, a tapestry of ancient customs, formed the backdrop of her childhood. Yet even as a young girl, she sensed tension beneath the city's opulence. Rival clans jostled for influence, and whispers of a new monotheistic movement in distant Medina drifted on the desert breeze. By adolescence, Hind's status had grown alongside her family's prestige. She was renowned for her sharp intellect and formidable will, qualities that caught the attention of Abu Sufyan ibn Harb, a shrewd Qurayshi chieftain whose caravans stretched from Yemen to Gaza. Their marriage united two of Mecca's most powerful houses and secured Hind a front-row seat in the city's political intrigues. In the gilded halls of her father-in-law's tent, she observed strategists debate the Muslim prophet's growing influence, weighing economic interests against emerging religious fervor. Islam threatened not only the gods of her ancestors, but the very pilgrimage traffic that filled Mecca's coffers. When the Prophet Muhammad denounced idolatry and called for radical social reforms, Utbah and Abu Sufyan saw a direct assault on their way of life, and Hind joined their stand against this rising tide. As Islam spread through Arabia, Hind's heart hardened with resentment. She bore witness to Quraysh leaders' sleepless nights spent plotting defense of their faith and fortune. She heard the Prophet's followers recite verses denouncing the elite, her elite, and saw the spark of anger ignite in her breast. To her, Muhammad's message was an affront. How dare a man from the house of Hashim challenge the centuries-old gods housed in her city's most sacred sanctuary? Fueled by wounded pride and devotion to clan, Hind stoked animosity against the Muslims, sharpening her resolve to defend Mecca's traditions by any means. That resolve erupted in full fury on March 19th, 625 CE, during the Battle of Uhud. On the eve of battle, Muslim scouts reported the Quraysh's approach from Mecca, their banners fluttering like dark omens against the horizon. At dawn, the two armies met on the slopes of Mount Uhud, an undulating red sandstone ridge north of Medina, dotted with thorny acacia and loose shale that made footing treacherous. The Muslim force numbered roughly 700, many of them recent converts still unseasoned in warfare. The Quraysh arrayed nearly 3,000 well-trained warriors, many mounted on camels and horses. The Prophet himself positioned a small group of archers on a rocky hill to guard the Muslims' rear, a decision that would later prove fatal when orders were disobeyed. As battle commenced, the desert air filled with the clash of steel and the cries of warriors. Hamza ibn Abdul-Muttalib, the Prophet's paternal uncle, charged with the ferocity of a lion, his silver armor gleaming in the early sun. Known as the Lion of Allah, Hamza had converted early and bore a deep personal hatred for the Quraysh who had persecuted Muhammad. His roar echoed across the plain as he cleaved through enemy lines, each swing of his sword felling a warrior. The Quraysh cavalry attempted flanking maneuvers, but Hamza met them head-on, turning back their spear thrusts with his broad shield. Amid this chaos, Wahshi ibn Harb, an Ethiopian slave promised freedom by Hind herself if he killed Hamza, crept through the fray. Wahshi had trained in javelin hunting, his aim precise from long days tracking game across arid lands, spotting his chance when Hamza paused to strike a Quraysh standard-bearer. Wahshi hurled his throwing spear with a practiced motion. The spear pierced Hamza's unguarded side beneath his ribs, severing a major artery. Witnesses recount Hamza raising his arm in surprise before collapsing onto the dust, crimson pooling beneath his armor, as the Muslims faltered at the loss of their champion. Hind bint Utbah emerged from the Quraysh ranks with her own retinue. Witnessing Hamza's lifeless form, she dismounted and approached with a mixture of triumph and loathing. According to later historians, she waded through the bodies of the fallen to reach him. With a ceremonial knife she carried, a curved blade inherited through her family's line, she cut open Hamza's chest and uprooted his liver, raising it like a trophy above her head. She declared aloud, "Take this, O son of Abdul-Muttalib, as vengeance for my father and my kin." The sight of her blood-soaked hands against the pale flesh of Hamza's chest horrified both armies and became seared into Muslim collective memory as an act of the deepest vengeance. News of Hamza's martyrdom struck Medina like thunder. Muhammad wept openly for his beloved uncle, consoling the wounded under a linen pavilion even as rain of arrows and spears continued overhead. He recited, "Indeed, Allah has purchased from the believers their lives and their properties. In exchange for that they will have paradise." Quran 9:111, finding solace in divine promise amid personal grief. After the battle, he forbade any retaliation against female combatants, instructing his followers to leave Hind unharmed when Mecca was conquered. This unprecedented mercy would later become the catalyst for Hind's own transformation. In the years following Uhud, Islam continued its surge across the Arabian Peninsula. Conversions in Najd and Yemen cut into Quraysh's trade alliances. Tribal confederations that once fell under Meccan influence now pledged to Medina. Abu Sufyan's caravans ran into ambushes and empty oases. Utbah's health waned under constant anxiety. Hind, watching from her tent, felt the foundations of her world crumble. She heard reports of the Prophet's fair treatment of captives, his restitution of stolen goods, and his calls for social justice. Rumors spread that communities once hostile now prospered under Islamic rule. The fierce pride that once fueled her hatred began to give way to a wary curiosity. That curiosity blossomed in 630 CE during the peaceful conquest of Mecca. Muhammad, peace be upon him, led an army of 10,000 toward the city gates. Abu Sufyan, seeing resistance as futile, rode forward to negotiate. The Prophet granted general amnesty to all Quraysh who laid down arms. As the Muslim banners fluttered above the Kaaba, Hind stood amid her kinsmen, heart pounding. When Abu Sufyan, now humbly transformed, offered her protection under the Prophet's pledge, she felt an unfamiliar stir of respect. Accounts say she wept as she met Muhammad's eyes. Eyes that once held enmity now shone with mercy. When he extended his hand, she clasped it and inked her conversion with a single phrase. "I bear witness there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger." Hind's embrace of Islam fulfilled the Quranic promise. So whoever believes in Allah and does righteousness, He will remove from him his misdeeds and admit him to gardens beneath which rivers flow. Quran 65 verse 5. Those words, once abstract teachings, became living truth in her life. The same hands that tore flesh now folded in prayer. The same lips that cursed now recited the Shahada, and the opening verses of Surah Al-Fatiha beneath the desert moon. As a Muslim, Hind devoted herself to the pillars of faith. She joined throngs circling the Kaaba in Tawaf, her footsteps echoing centuries of monotheistic aspiration. She stood shoulder to shoulder with former adversaries in the Sa'i between Safa and Marwa, her pulse racing as she reenacted Hajar's desperate search for water. She tasted Zamzam water for the first time with reverent gratitude. In Medina, she sat in the Prophet's mosque, absorbing his words and the recitation of the Quran. Reports record her charitable deeds, distributing date-filled baskets to orphans, tending wounds of the poor, and stitching garments for widows left destitute by years of war. Her transformation from feared enemy to beloved elder became a parable for the community. Her sons, Al-Walad and Yazad, once heirs to Quraysh power, also pledged allegiance to Muhammad. They carried her story into the ranks of the Muslim polity, one fighting alongside Khalid ibn al-Walad in the Ridda Wars, the other administering justice in Yemen. Through them, Hind's household contributed to the Ummah's expansion, their names inscribed in chronicles by Tabari and Ibn Kathir. Even after the Prophet's death in 632 CE, she remained a fixture in Medina, sought out by younger women for her memories of the Prophet's mercy and the lessons she learned at his side. Islamic historians preserved Hind's saga not merely as biography but as moral instruction. Tabari records how, when asked about the liver she bore, she wept and said, "It was ignorance that drove me and mercy that redeemed me." Ibn Kathir echoes this, using her life to illustrate the Quranic command. Invite to the way of your Lord with wisdom and good instruction, and argue with them in a way that is best. Quran 16:125. Later exegetes and scholars of hadith pointed to Hind's example as proof that salvation lies within reach of every sinner who turns sincerely to Allah. In modern times, Hind bint Utbah remains a subject of debate and reflection. Some feminist scholars highlight her agency, how she wielded power in a patriarchal society and navigated complex political landscapes. Others emphasize her capacity for change, drawing parallels between her transformation and contemporary journeys from hatred to reconciliation. In literature and film, she appears alternately as tragic villain and redemptive heroine, a figure whose moral complexity challenges simple categorization. What then can we learn from Hind's journey? First, that identity is not immutable. One's lineage or past actions need not chain one's future. A person steeped in privilege and vengeance can, through mercy, become a beacon of compassion. Second, that forgiveness wields more transformative power than reprisal. When the Prophet forgave Hind, he unlocked a ripple of unity that carried his message beyond conquest. Finally, that mercy is a conscious choice. Every act of kindness chips away at enmity, reshaping communities for generations. In tracing Hind's footsteps, from the tented courts of Mecca to the red hills of Uhud and the serene streets of Medina, we glimpse the arc of divine guidance bending human hearts toward redemption. Her story invites us to ask, where have we held on to anger too long? How might we extend mercy when adversity tempts us to lash out? And who among us, by a single act of compassion, might change the course of history? Hind's legacy endures in each forgiveness we offer and each past grievance we relinquish. Her life stands as a testament to the promise in the words of the Prophet. Show mercy to those on earth, and the one above the heavens will show mercy to you. Sunan at-Tirmidhi. May her journey from pride to humility inspire us all to unveil the best within ourselves, and to remember that, even in our darkest deeds, the door to Allah's mercy stands wide open.